Welcome to the Changing Earth podcast with Sarah F. Hathaway, blending survival, fiction, and fact to bring you entertaining education that'll help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sarah F. Hathaway.
Hello and welcome to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 24. So last week we had some major destruction at the Cool Camp, but the plot is about to take a wild turn. So you are going to absolutely want to turn up your sound systems because this is where it gets really fun in the story. Some of my favorite action scenes, and you know I'm an action adventure lover, so this is where, my skills really come out, and I just love this part of the story. So hold on tight to your seat. Today, I have former Officer Ralph Swayze back on the show, and he is here today to help me debate the issue of civilian versus military leadership for your survival group. So great topic to talk about. Who do you want to be leading your group, and how are they going to step to the plate? And how are they going to respond? So it's a really great conversation, and I hope you love it as much as I did. So like I say, exciting show. Here we go with the day after disaster story. Day After Disaster by Sarah F. Hathaway, Chapter 24. The next morning was a very different day. There was no noise of hustle and bustle. All of the survivors in the camp were solemn from the events of the day before. You could hear screams from the medical area as people who had passed out from the excruciating pain began to wake up to the hell that awaited them. Even the children were quiet and sat talking tentatively amongst themselves. Vince had awoken before Erica and was sitting with Greg cooking something in a can. Erica got up feeling very stiff, and she was still all crusty with dried blood. Erica really didn't know what to do. Every day seemed so different from the one before. All she could really be sure of was that she was alive and with her family. She sent a silent prayer to God, thanking him for returning her to her family and begging him for their safety. "Good morning, baby," Vince whispered quietly. He had seen her waking up and wanted to go and hug her. "Good morning," she responded sheepishly. Vince hugged her tight, and she never wanted to let go. Everything was so messed up, and their love felt so right. She wanted to close her eyes and stay there forever. "There's a little water in the plastic bottle over there, but use it sparingly. It's all we have," Vince directed as he pulled away from her to examine her and make sure all the blood on her was someone else's and not hers. "We are going to have to do something about that," he said as he looked up at her crusty condition. "I assume once everyone wakes up, we'll talk about what to do next. So get some water and clean your face and come and eat some yummy cream corn breakfast," Vince said sarcastically. "Sounds great," Erica countered his sarcastic tone. She went over and poured a little water in a bowl. As she splashed it on her face and rubbed it on her arms, she stared absently at the bowl as it began to turn red from the blood melting off her skin. She couldn't believe this life. It seemed so unfair that she would have to endure this fate. It seemed like just yesterday they would have been safe at home, staring at a TV or a computer, maybe playing video games with Dex or harvesting vegetables from the garden. They would have been worried about not having enough money to go on vacation or buy that new car they wanted. It was like a nightmare she could not wake up from. All of a sudden there was a commotion amongst the quiet of the grieving camp. Erica snapped out of her daydream, finished up her cleaning, dumped the water on the ground, and went to see what was going on. As she approached Vince, she saw that Big John had arrived. She hadn't seen him since before the disaster, and even though he had lost a lot of weight, he looked really good. His stocky legs had turned to pure muscle, and his brownish-gray hair was disheveled. "Big John!" Erica yelled. "So great to see you." She ran over and gave him a big hug. He had always been like a big teddy bear, and he lifted her up and swung her around in a circle. "I had my doubts, Erica. I really did. But here you are. It's a miracle," he said in his gruff voice. You can't stop this girl, Erica jested back with him. But your will was tested, wasn't it? Look at you. Big John had stood back to look at her and had her chin in his gigantic hand. He was turning her head back and forth, examining the scars that now riddled her neck and stretched up behind her ears. She had done her best to get clean, but with the limited water supply, some blood and dirt had stuck in the ripples of her scars and made them look more pronounced. I bet you have some story to tell, he mused as he assessed her. Oh no, not again, Big John. It's a long and difficult one to tell, she exclaimed, not wanting to relive the experience every time she ran into someone she knew. We don't have time for stories right now anyway. I wish we did, but it looks like you guys got hit hard, and we didn't do much better. He had let her go and was now addressing the group. We got freaking screwed, man, Greg said point blank. Half the camp is dead, including my father. 6 people survived with horrible wounds, but we lost our water supply, so they have nothing to drink. The fires ripped through our tents, our supplies, and we have about 10 more orphaned kids. This is so jacked up. Greg was usually so calm and jovial, but this last hit and the loss of his father had rocked him hard. Calm down, Greg. That's not going to get us anywhere, Vince snapped. Don't tell me to calm down. I'm not calming down. We are screwed, man. Vince was coming unglued now. The crowd gathering was getting bigger. Erica shot Richard, who was still caring for the children, a sideways look, and he started to shuttle the children off to a quiet corner of the camp. Star would not budge, and she came and sat quietly with Dex, a little ways behind Erica. He's right, yelled someone from the crowd. God's wrath is upon us. This is the end of the world. We're all going to die, yelled someone else. Everyone was quickly unraveling, and this situation was getting out of control. Vince pulled Greg away and started to talk sense to him. Greg had been a charismatic leader, and without him, this group was losing faith fast. Erica stepped up on a stump. Look, everyone, I know this sucks, and there's nothing we can do about it. I thought I was dead many times before this, but here I am. Humans have been tested by God many times in the past, and here we are. If we give up, we're dead. But we are not going to give up, are we? She questioned the crowd. No, responded some folks. Are we? Erica questioned again. No, more people responded this time in a more spirited tone. Now we have to decide what to do next. We can't stay here with no water, so let's discuss what to do. Any suggestions? Erica wanted to include the whole group so no one felt like they didn't have a say. Let's go with Big John to the Georgetown River Camp. There's water there. It was Ryan, the doctor. He was super concerned about the need for water for his patients. Well, hold on now, said John. I was about to explain before I got interrupted. He shot Greg a sideways look. Our camp fared better than this one, but we flooded badly. Water came down the river so fast it washed away most of our tents and supplies. But we saved everyone. See? We're going to die. Every one of us, came a voice from the crowd. This time Erica picked out who it was. It was Bob Hawthorne, the moonshine maker. He was probably drunk already, she thought. Bob, I thought we agreed that kind of talk was getting us nowhere. Erica snapped at him, and most of the crowd glared at him. He quietly fell back behind some other folks. He was perfectly happy to speak out when he was anonymous, but singling him out made him shrink. So what are you thinking, John? Erica knew he hadn't finished talking before he was interrupted again. I'm thinking we should get out of California. Maybe it isn't as bad on the other side of the mountains. There's no way to know for sure, but let's face it. The coast is gone, and who knows when those quakes will stop. We haven't received any help from the east, so something must be going on there too. But it can't be as bad as this, John finished. This is why Big John had come, to get Vince and Erica and leave. He had not planned on taking all these people or facing all this commotion. Where would we go? I've always lived in California, a voice from the crowd questioned. I think he's right. Who cares where we go? We need to get the hell out of here, another voice yelled in panic. All right, everyone, Erica broke in. Let's not get all excited again. Obviously, this gives us some food for thought. It's clear we need to leave here, so I think our first stop should be down at the camp in Lotus. Hopefully they fared better than either of our camps. Even if they didn't, they have water, and the injured people Ryan is caring for won't survive long without it. Let's go pack up whatever stuff we can and make some kind of stretchers for the wounded. Whether you stay here in California or leave with us is an individual's decision. So go pack your stuff and think about it. Erica had no idea how she ended up in this leadership role, but she desperately wanted to disperse the crowd so she could talk privately with Vince, Greg, and John. As the crowd was dispersing, there was another commotion as people started to fend off a raggedy man that had come up out of the canyon. No one had been on lookout, and his approach was startling. He was asking for Erica. The crowd began to part as he was ushered over to where she was. Some of the crowd left, but most of them remained. They were curious about who this man was and why he was here asking for Erica. Vince and Greg didn't like the look of this man and posted up quickly in front of her to protect her from this crazy-looking guy. Vince couldn't help but wonder what this guy had in mind for his wife. Vince and Erica had usually been side by side in the past, and each knew each other's friends well. "Where is Erica? I have to talk to her," the deranged man pleaded insistently. "Look, buddy, I don't know who you are," but Vince began to fend him off, but was interrupted. "Harold? Harold Duncan, is that you?" Erica questioned in a shocked voice. She began to see through the dirt-layered face, the light brown eyes that looked so much like Henry's, his father. His strawberry brown hair was smacked down to his head, and it looked as though dried blood held it in place. "Oh my God, Harold, what happened to you?" "Vince, go get Ryan, he needs a doctor." Erica was scrambling to get past Vince and Greg to Harold to make sure he was okay. Vince was still blocking the two from one another in a defensive pose. "Vince!" Erica yelled, breaking his glare at the man. "This man's father saved my life. This is Henry's son. If it weren't for his father, I would not be here at all. Can't you see he needs help? Please go get Ryan." "I'm on it," Vince replied. Now that Vince was filled in on the full story, he didn't hesitate to fulfill his wife's wishes and ran off down the hill to find Ryan. "Here, Harold, sit down over here," Erica said in a concerned voice. There was a stump they had been using as a seat for eating, and Erica led Harold over to it. "Now just relax and rest for a minute. Ryan will be here soon," and Harold cut her off. "I can't rest, Erica. I have to go," he stammered, starting to get up. "Go? Go where? And where are Henry and Carol and Betsy and the kids?" Erica was very curious now. He was all alone. There was no way Harold would have left them. They had been well supplied with food, weapons, and horses. Now here he was alone in rags. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. That Auburn group, they attacked my mom and dad's house. They took everything from me, my wife, my kids, my parents, all the supplies, all the horses. It was horrible. They caught us off guard. I tried to fight their leader, Doug, I think his name is, and I was winning for a while, but then one of his men cracked me over the head, and I guess they left me for dead. I woke up and they were all gone. And so were all the supplies." Harold was in tears now, looking desperately at Erica. Just then, Vince came back with Ryan. Ryan had a few of the precious medical supplies with him. As Ryan stepped in front of Harold to treat him, Erica stepped back to fill Vince in on what was going on. "That sucks, baby, but I don't know what we can do. We just got wiped out, and we have to go find your mom." Vince was just trying to face the facts. "I know, Vince, but we have to do something. These people saved me. They didn't have to, but they took pity on me, cared for me, and supplied me for my journey home. Henry even gave me Kit. I would not be standing in front of you now if it weren't for Henry and Carol. Now they need me. I can't just walk away, Vince. I have to do something." Erica's voice was firm. "Erica." Vince's voice was more sympathetic now. He had a feeling she was not going to budge on this. "We don't even know if they're still alive." "They are alive." Harold had been listening to their conversation as Ryan was shaving his head and stitching up the huge gash on it. "I've been watching my family being held hostage by those animals. I've just been waiting for a chance to rescue them. This last quake really rocked that Auburn compound, but there's still too many men in there for one man to take on. I can't do this alone, but I will try if I have to." "You said they took your supplies too?" It was Rob Burton speaking up. He had stayed behind to see what was going on. Rob used to be in the military and knew it was best always to gather as much information as possible in any given situation. "Yeah, they did," Harold answered. He was almost appalled that Rob was more interested in the supplies than his family. "Vince, I don't know if you noticed, but supplies are running really low around here. I've been doing the math, and I don't know how we're going to move all these people without more supplies. Those guys at the Auburn compound have really been busy stocking. We could use all that." Greg stepped in to protect his friend. "Rob, you're always looking for a fight. What if we all die? Then all those people we are trying to save would really be in trouble. Greg's friend Denton spoke up next. Look, Greg, I know we've been friends for a long time, but I have to agree with Rob on this one. We can't make it very far without more food. Most of what we had left was lost in the fire. We are running out of options. We can always rummage the houses that are left along the way, Greg countered. Oh, you mean the ones we pilfered last month? There's nothing left, Greg. Face it. Denton was right, even though Greg didn't want to admit it. Regardless of our supply situation, I am going to save Harold's family or die trying. Erica was just as irritated as Harold that the conversation had gone from rescuing good people to getting more supplies, and her mind was set. Vince knew there was no changing her mind now, so he simply replied, Then I'm going with you. Someone has to keep an eye on you. He gave her a wink. Then so am I, said Greg. I'm in, said Rob. I'm in, Denton chimed. Big John had been standing off to the side while this drama played out. He finally stepped up. Okay, guys, it looks as if you have some stuff to take care of. My mission is to get us out of California. I'm going to go back to the Georgetown River Camp and see what they want to do. I will let them know that we are leaving and see how many of them feel the same way. Then I'm going to scout a clear route to get us out of here. I will meet you at the Lotus Camp after you've rescued Harold's family and got the supplies. God knows we're going to need them too. Sounds like a plan, John, Vince replied. He really wished they could just be going with him now, but he understood why Erica felt the way she did, and there was no way he was leaving her again. We will meet you at the Lotus Camp. That way we can get Erica's mom and Brett and get out of here. Take care of yourself and your woman, Vince, John said with concern in his eyes. You know what kind of men they are down there. Just be careful. We will, don't worry. Ain't nothing gonna slow me down, Vince said with a smile. He was scared and knew exactly what kind of evil men were down there, but he covered it with sarcasm. Big John left, and after explaining the entire situation to the rest of the camp, they had a group of volunteers willing to risk their life for this mission. There were 11 of them in total. Erica, Vince, Greg, Rob, and Denton had heralded the call for volunteers. Taylor, Randy, and Tom from the Auburn River group were all young men, but they were strong and ready to take direction. Steve and Jimmy D, also from the Auburn River group, stepped up as well. They were ready for some payback after the last clash with the Auburn gang. The last volunteer was Michelle from the Cool Camp. Although she was kind of spacey, she was a great shot with a rifle and was a welcome addition to the group. Even though Richard really wanted to go, in the end he decided to stay behind with the children and help lead the group to the Lotus Camp. There were not too many able bodies left, so he would be crucial to that group. After the attack, the two groups would rally in Lotus where Big John would find them. Then they could all decide their next move after that. Rob, having military experience, led the attack group. He picked Harold's brain for all the information he could gather about the Auburn gang's camp. How did they patrol it? Where were their traps set? When did they eat? Where did they get water from? Did they have power? Rob asked a flurry of questions that Erica would have never even considered. This was just as well because while Rob was forming an attack plan, Erica and Vince were busy packing up Kit in his cart. Star would be leading Kit and Dexter was going to ride in the supply cart. Richard would keep an eye on her, though, to make certain she was not stressing her injured leg too bad. The pace would be slow because of all the injured people they had to carry, so they all had faith that Star would do fine. Ripper was going with the kids because he could severely hamper the attack if his anxiousness got the better of him. Plus, he would protect those kids with all his being, so Erica knew that was the best place for him. They loaded Greg's old dog Dakota in the cart with Dex as well. Coda wasn't looking too hot, and they wondered how long he would be able to keep surviving in this world. It felt really wrong to Erica and Vince to be sending the kids off on their own, but they would be well cared for. They had gained a lot of faith in Richard and the group of good folks they had met up with in Cool. Plus, they were headed for Lotus, where Erica's mom was still camped. She would find them and protect them. When Erica had the horse ready to go, she turned and watched Dexter and Star playing in the sunlight. The kids would play. No matter what was going on or how scary the world got, the kids would play. They were so innocent, aware of the world, but not yet fully conscious of its implications. Erica's eyes began to sting with tears. She jumped as Vince wrapped his arm around her. He stood next to her, staring. It was a moment to remember. If she still had a cell phone that worked, she would have grabbed it to capture the moment in a digital image. Those days were gone now. The two vigilant parents took the time to play a short game of tag with their children. They had no idea when the next time they would get the opportunity to play innocently with their children would be, or if they ever would at all. They ran and laughed. Others joined in the game. Life was going so incredibly wrong, the fun was almost like an addictive drug. You just couldn't help yourself. Other people in the camp stopped whatever they were doing and watched. But the game came to an end all too quickly. Rob appeared ready to head out, and the groups were quickly directed off to the areas they were meeting at before departing. Erica and Vince hugged Dexter and Star as hard as they could, and tried to appear positive and optimistic, even though tears were forming in their eyes from the fear of never seeing them again. They tried to savor every sight and smell of the children and hold it tight in their memories. They choked back the tears as they kissed goodbye, but each one knew deep down inside what had to be done. The kids ran off to join Richard and head out for the Lotus camp. Ripper was unsure which way to go, but Erica told him to stay with the children, and he hesitantly went off to fulfill his job. All right, so fun stuff. I told you it wasn't going to disappoint, and I'm sure I'm going to catch all kinds of flack for leaving you guys hanging where it is, but you're just going to have to tune in next week to see how this battle all plays out. So bear with me, and don't give me too many nasty messages now, all y'all. So now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and introduce Ralph back to the show. Now, Ralph is a retired law enforcement instructor. He graduated high school in Santa Maria, California. Upon graduation, he joined the United States Marine Corps Reserve. His training included boot camp at MCRD San Diego, California, infantry training regiment, and basic infantry training school at Camp Pendleton, California. He joined the Santa Maria City Police Department as a reserve officer in 1974, and in 1975 he re-enlisted in the United States Marine Corps as a military police officer, MOS 5811, at El Toro Marine Corps Air Station. He was honorably discharged December of 1976. Upon his return to Santa Maria, California, he completed the Basic Police Academy at Allen Hancock College. He was hired as a full-time police officer by the Grover City, now Grover Beach Police Department. After a year at the GCPD, he made a lateral transfer to the Red Bluff Police Department. In 1977, he returned to his hometown of Santa Maria, joining the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department. In 1980, he was appointed to the North County Special Enforcement Team, SET. His team was very active in the years that he was assigned as lead entry operator. In 1985, his partner and he were awarded the H. Thomas Guery Award for Valor based on a barricaded suspect who had his wife as a hostage. The hostage was successfully removed, and the suspect succumbed from injuries sustained in the gun battle. After numerous close calls, he took a lateral transfer to Northern California, joining the Amador County Sheriff's Department. Upon his retirement from law enforcement, he worked as a high school athletic director, assistant principal, and principal. His last 10 years were spent teaching high school students law enforcement in a regional occupational program in the Sierra foothills of California. So Ralph is always welcome on the show. Great guy to get to know, and I'm very honored to welcome him today. Thank you very much for spending your time with me, Ralph. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So today we're talking about the leadership debate. And in this chapter, Erica and Vince decide to go and raid the Auburn camp to get Harold's family back. And a character named Rob is put in charge of leading the group because he has military experience. So I've been on the social forums a lot, and this is always a big debate of people saying, why would you put somebody of a civilian leadership in charge at that point when you have somebody who's military, that people are complaining about stories that have civilian leaders. And for some reason, I always leaned as well towards the military leadership in a situation like that, especially when you're going in to raid a camp like that. So do you feel that individuals who are already military trained would be of the utmost importance in these long-term survival situations, and what's your feeling on that?
Well, having a military, first a military background and then secondarily a career in law enforcement, I strongly believe that having any sort of military tactical training, not every branch of the service does tactical training. The Air Force, and again, I'm just saying, just based on what I understand. I've never been in the Air Force, the Army, the Navy. I was a United States Marine, so I know what that kind of training is, and I know that training is very conducive to leadership. It's in the Marine Corps. It's all about the NCO, non-commissioned officers, the backbone of the Marine Corps, and the training. Everyone is trained in military tactics. So based on my experience, I definitely would want or take that leadership role if you're going to, if you're going to tactically approach a village or a home or whatever. Military tactics and how to deploy people. It is of the utmost importance because people die if it's not done correctly. You can't just walk up and put yourself in front of a doorway or a window. You have to understand basic, rudimentary tactical situations and how to take care of that. Whereas a civilian, I'm sure there are many civilians that go paintballing or whatever, and so they have at least some knowledge. But I'm going to take a military veteran that's had some either combat experience or had some leadership experience at a squad level or a platoon level over a civilian that who knows. Right. That's just, again, my opinion. That's what we're speaking about here.
Right, and that's why I was like, you would definitely need somebody who had that experience leading the group. I mean, you can't just have a big old group of people going in. That, like you say, it's just setting yourself up for disaster, I would think.
Definitely failure because, there are many ways to approach. I've been in many situations, SWAT situations, where we would put together a tactical plan, obviously, before we go and carry out the plan, and everybody has input in the plan, and then we would carry out the plan as it was discussed and drawn up, etc.
Right. So that, even at the planning stage, you're going to need to know what's going on. So, absolutely. As a civilian, do you think you mentioned, like playing paintball or airsoft would kind of get you some experience? Do you think that there's ways that civilians can teach themselves to do this job without having that kind of experience?
That's an interesting question, and the reason I say that is I don't play the video games, but being a teacher, a recently retired teacher of law enforcement students at the high school level, every one of them plays that. They play the war game.
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, yeah. They play that, and then, the minute the next version comes out, they all stay up till midnight to buy it. And so they have some basic knowledge. And but again, I'm talking about law enforcement students, ROP law enforcement students that are interested in the business to begin with, and they're interested in tactics, they're interested in shooting and defensive tactics and SWAT and all that stuff, albeit they're just high school kids, but they go paintballing and they play the Call of Duty and all those types of games. And so I'm sure that as realistic as what I've seen, again, I don't have that stuff and I don't play it, but I can see that they're at least gaining some knowledge of how to move tactically, how to deploy tactically, and how to protect themselves. So I can guess that there are some people that are very proficient that have never had any actual formal training.
Yeah, those games get eerie sometimes with, you have to sneak down and kill people and you see their eyes staring back at you. It's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to let my, teenager, well, my teenager's different, but the younger ones, do that just yet, because they are pretty realistic.
When they're 18, they can make their own decisions. But boy, I tell you what, I've read a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. He's written several books on killing, and he point blank says, and he has the information to back it up, that those games are not positive in any way, shape, or form. And he's an expert. I mean, if you've ever have you ever heard of Dave Grossman?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you'll have to. I'm
going to look him up. Mm-hmm.
Outstanding stuff. He talks about sheep, wolves, sheep, and sheepdogs. You'll find it to be a fascinating read. It's probably 2 pages. It's just outstanding.
Yeah, I was going to say the cool thing about those games is you can get all shot up and come back to life.
Yeah, well,
right?
that's something that's great for games, but when it's real,
yeah, that's the big difference there, I would think.
Yeah, sure.
So as far as if we're in a survival situation and we have this large group of people that are all coming together, surviving together. So I'm talking just on a, on a community basis. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would be better to have a civilian leadership of those people or a militarily run leadership of those people, given that we're in a long-term survival situation?
Well, of course, military, and what I would do, if I may, is that there would be one person in charge who would then appoint several small group leaders, civilian or military, doesn't matter, because leaders, when people are in a group, leaders will naturally emerge, and I've done that. I've been in experiments where that's happened, and I'm sure you have too, where
yep.
We'll be at a seminar and they'll figure out who the leader is of, let's say it's 4 or 5 people. A leader will emerge. It's just like a jury. A jury's going to pick a foreman, and the way they pick the foreman is the leader emerges, and that's who those that are really not inclined to lead, they naturally lean on that person, and that person becomes the foreman. And in a survival situation, you're going to have someone in total complete leadership role. But then he or she, it could be either. They would then have to depend on small group leaders or squad leaders, if you will, on down the line in order to accomplish that goal.
So we could do like appoint somebody who has more of a military understanding as the main leader, and that way they can be in charge of the security and all of the aspects of the camp. But then you're appointing maybe civilian leadership or whatnot underneath that to make sure everybody's feeling good and happy and that they're growing food and doing their things underneath that, where the military leadership might not be as needed.
There you go. Absolutely. I totally agree. That would be a natural thing. And I think that would be probably to the benefit of all.
I agree with that. And I like the aspect of you would need the smaller group leaders. And you're right, they would just kind of emerge on their own.
They would.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think are some pros and cons of each type of leadership? Because I could think of a few. So I just kind of want to pick your brain on what do you think would be, if you did have a military person with military background, what would be some pros and cons of having that person in charge? Well,
first off, I strongly believe the pros would outweigh the cons, but I can think of both. The pros would be the training, depending on the branch of service, depending on the military occupation that individual had. They would have the leadership skills just based on boot camp and some basic infantry training and tactics and so forth. The con, side of it would be oftentimes people with with past military experience, former military people, they can be very rigid and not very flexible, and not too inclined to having input from anybody else. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, that they would have the idea and say, nope, this is how it is.
Exactly. You do as I say. I've run into some that can be very rigid and not at all. They just don't like to take. They won't take suggestion type thing, and that can be a real hard thing, because people want to know that they have a say, particularly in a survivalist or survival situation. There are times though when that's, at least in my branch of the service, that you responded to orders quickly, without question, and that kept people alive. And,
right.
But you also have to understand that not every situation is life and death, and in some situations you can have discussion, you can take input from others, and then formulate a plan of action, or it's kind of not committee rule, but just making sure that everybody feels that they have a say, and that they must feel like that they are an important, integral part of the team.
Right. So trust of that leader is going to be of the utmost importance, because you got to be able to trust them if you're just going to listen to their orders and respond.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that trust is not something that, in the military, that trust is automatic based on their rank and their history, their experience, their training. When you're in a civilian situation, that trust has to be earned based on, how you get along with people, how you communicate with people, and several other factors that are important.
Right. I agree with that 100%, because I'm more than willing to listen and take orders immediately, as long as I respect you and trust you. And then otherwise it's like, yeah, no, I don't think so.
Absolutely.
Well, awesome. That about wraps it up for our leadership discussion. I want to thank you very much for coming and helping me out with that topic. It was one that I kept mulling over in my brain over and over again. So I really appreciate your advice there on it.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much for being here, Ralph. It's such a hot topic, when you're putting together that survival group as to who you want to pick to be the leader of that group should something go wrong. And we made some really good points during that conversation. So really, it's up to each one of your groups as to who you're going to pick and who you're going to trust to fulfill that role. So let's go ahead and get into review time. It's time for review time. Got an opinion? I'd love to hear it. Go ahead and give me your 2 cents on Day After Disaster or the Changing Earth podcast. Head on over to Amazon or iTunes to give me your 2 cents. Today on Review Time, I have some pretty cool reviews for you that I was happy to receive. My first review is a 5-star review from Melina Brugner, and she says, a page turner. A page turner, very exciting, and just when you think it's going to a point of ending, another surprise happens. So that should be a hint to all of you guys out there enjoying the podcast that just when you think it's going to end, another surprise is coming. The next review that I have is from Eric Weinmeister, and he said, my wife had read the book and really enjoyed it. I decided to read it, and I'm happy I did. I didn't expect that I would enjoy it so much. It was tough to put down. Now I'll be watching for additional books from this author. Well, thanks very much, Eric. I appreciate your review and knowing that it kept you turning the pages and you're just looking forward to the next one coming out. That's what really drives me and keeps me rolling. My next review is from DOLFNLVR. I don't know how to say that name, so I'm just going to say the letters. And it's a 5-star review that says must read. I read some of the reviews and was quite surprised with a few of them. I think the book was great. I have a fondness for survival books and movies, so the book was bound to be appealing for me anyway. I hope the author has either a sequel or another book published soon. So thank you very much for this review. I'm glad that you went ahead, even though, some of the reviews got a little dicey. But, that's what you get when you get reviews. People are 10 times more likely to talk about something that they don't like than they are to talk about something that they like. So to get reviews, you're either going to have, your fanfares out there who really love the book, or you're going to have the haters who just want to go up and say how much they didn't like it. So, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and you got to develop some very thick skin as an author or a person who puts yourself out there to be criticized by the public. So I appreciate that you went ahead and bought the book anyway and really loved it, and you're waiting for the sequel, and it is now out. Without Land is available, so I really want to hear your feedback on that one as well. The last review I have for you today is a 5-star by I. Hawthorne, and he said, a great read. It was wonderful to read a post-apocalyptic story from a strong woman's point of view. I can't wait for the sequel. So this is an awesome review, right to the point. And, I've heard a little bit of feedback from some people that I personally contacted that, that female should have been stronger and she would have kicked butt and blah, blah, blah. And I really tried to create Erica as a novice at this point. She's young. She's in the circumstance, doesn't really know what to do. She has these skills that she's kind of put together in her past, but never thought she'd have to use them. And now that she does, it's a challenge. So it's a buildup of her skills. And I guarantee that in Without Land, you're going to be blown away by her attitude there, and the amount of power that she finds from her inner being. So, well, that's all the reviews I have for you today. Remember, until next time, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sarah for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster at www.authorSarahFHathaway.com. If you love this podcast, please head over to iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.